What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about Circus Electrique, a turn-based tactical game with elements of circus management of all things, but a few things to get out of the way right out of the gate here. This video is sponsored by Saber Interactive, the publisher for the title, and the game itself is developed by Zen Studios. That said, the game is out now, September 6th. Available pretty much everywhere: Steam, Epic, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch. This game is going to see us rebuilding our circus while exploring 6 different districts of a Victorian steampunk London. Now, as I already mentioned, the game is a turn-based tactical game, but in addition to this, we're also going to be, as I mentioned, managing our circus. This means hiring performers who act as our characters and combat classes, while also putting on circus shows, which means we'll be managing our funding, our food, how much resources are going in. As our circus gets upgraded, we add more and more things we have to keep track of. You can manage your individual performers' attributes or traits, so there's quite a bit to it. But the actual plot setup for the game sees the city of London being affected by the maddening. In this particular version of the world, there's a lot of steampunk technology going on, and for some reason, a lot of citizens have kind of gone berserk and start attacking everyone. And your task, while also managing a circus, is to get to the bottom of this and sort it out, as a lot of it, as you might imagine, centers around the Steam company and its involvement in creating all this steampunk technology. But overall, without spoiling anything, the plot does seem pretty cool. We get to interact with a lot of, again, very steampunk elements that I enjoyed quite a bit. But let's talk a bit more about the actual circus part of it. This opens up as you go, so the more you carry on throughout the game, you'll get more buildings, etc. And also, as you rank up your circus through Circus Fame, you'll open up more options to upgrade your buildings as well as put on a variety of different circus shows. But the main thing you're going to have to do before you do any of that is hire performers. Now, as I mentioned, these performers will also act as your combat team, but we'll get to that, because when you're not performing combat, there is still also a lot to do. Primarily, as I've mentioned, is perform circus shows. These shows will help you earn money, Circus Fame, which will of course rank up your circus itself, but you can also receive gifts which can act as upgrade materials for your performers when they level up, or various crafting materials, etc. Now, outside of the shows, there are a lot of other things we can do at our circus as well, especially as we unlock and upgrade more and more buildings. As I already mentioned, we get access to a crafting tent. This is going to see us crafting all sorts of consumables for in combat as well as out of it. Standard stuff like healing items, damage items to be used in combat, but also more interesting stuff that affects the performance of your actual circus shows. You can craft modifiers for those events as well. In addition to this, we can also train and rest our performers here. If they are injured in combat, we can put them in the sleeping tent to rest and recover. If we, say, recruit a lower level performer because we haven't upgraded our train yet, which gives us access to higher initial levels for companion characters, we might have a lower level companion that needs to get leveled up to the rest of our team. This can be done through the training tent, which can kind of passively level up the characters you're not using as regularly. We also get access to a training grounds later, which will let you practice in combat, which is a nice touch, especially for those a little unfamiliar with turn-based combat. But let's talk a little bit more about the actual circus shows before we move on, because while this is primarily just a background event, you're going to be assigning performers to work on a specific event or type of show. There are a few cool elements to it. For starters, each individual performer has a sort of act that they do, and this takes up one of a few different types of act, and various events will have slots for various types of acts, and you'll kind of match the performers to those acts, which can then create synergies and increase the performance and success chance of the circus show, which will then give you stars that you can then kind of allocate towards what kind of show you want it to be. Do you want more people there? Do you want it to be more fun? Do you want the show to be complex? And each of those individual stats will then earn you things like Circus Fame, experience, more money made, that type of stuff. But let's actually talk about combat now. Now, combat uses 15 archetypes or classes of performer in turn-based battles that take place as sort of 4 versus 4 enemies usually. So you're going to have 4 characters and the enemy will have 4 as well in most cases. Now, I want to start this off by saying the game has a very solid tutorial that honestly does a great job of onboarding you into the combat. As somebody who plays a lot of tactical and turn-based games, I did want to mention that the tutorial is very spot on and it does a great job of explaining explaining things. Now, most of your characters every turn are going to be able to use an item and perform an action. Now, the actions are divided up by your skills. What skills you have will depend on your performer and what class they are, or archetype. However, all performers have access to a sort of general set of skills, like delaying an action, waiting, a defensive one, etc. But in order to perform those actions, you really need to pay attention to positioning. As you can see on screen here, both we and our enemies have 4 slots, if you will, on each side of the screen. And which one you're in does actually matter. It will determine the skills you can use, as some skills require you to be in a specific position, and also they will affect specific positions on the enemy team. One of your more general skills is to move your guys around manually, so you can kind of affect this pretty directly by positioning them before combat, but also if they get moved by, say, an enemy skill or something, it is possible to move your characters where you need them, but it does count as their action for that turn. Now, unsurprisingly, certain classes prefer certain positions. However, most classes do have something that kind of works for the front of the crowd versus the back of the crowd, but definitely there are classes that prefer certain positions in the lineup. Now, in addition to all of that, I also wanted to talk about the devotion mechanic. This effectively acts as a sort of morale system, but I think it's really cool as it influences a great deal of combat. Now, this is that blue bar below your health bar, and if it hits 0, the character will flee. That includes your characters and the enemy characters. A lot of abilities will affect your devotion in some way, either increasing it or lowering it. There are abilities that will increase it and buff it, which actually effectively buffs your entire character because a lot of your abilities, etc., are influenced by the amount of devotion that that character has. However, there's also abilities that will directly decrease someone's devotion, which will make them less effective in combat while also allowing you to potentially make an enemy's devotion hit 0, which will cause them to flee, which is the same as effectively killing them in combat. And as you might imagine, there are builds and possibilities that kind of center around lowering a character's devotion versus lowering their actual health, which in some cases is easier. It doesn't stop there. We also have positive and negative states of mind because, as I mentioned, this is a morale mechanic. So when you hit certain thresholds of either lower or higher morale, your character can enter a negative or positive state of mind. These are battle-specific buffs, so they kind of last for the battle that they're in, and they confer just a positive or negative benefit or detriment to that character based on their devotion. Different difficulty levels that you have the game actually set on will kind of alter the chances of this triggering either one way or the other. If it's on easy, you're unlikely to get a negative state of mind, for instance. So certainly something to keep in mind. But believe it or not, we're still not done with the devotion mechanic because there are ways to kind of raise it and influence it outside of combat as well. Performing in circus shows, because these are performers at the end of the day, will increase their devotion. There's also consumables that can increase it, and it is a very integral mechanic to the game, and definitely something you need to keep an eye on. So with the 2 major points of the game out of the way, let's actually talk about the sort of gameplay loop, what you're actually going to be doing. So the game takes place in days. You'll effectively be handling your circus, and then you can go explore the map, one of 6 districts. This takes place by kind of moving along a path to the end goal, which is usually a sort of end area boss. Now, every time you end a fight, that will end the day, which will complete your circus show if it wasn't a multi-day event. And time will pass, you'll get an update on just how things are going. You'll update all your various resources for the day. You have to feed all these performers, for instance, so you have to have enough food to do that, or someone could die. But in addition to this stuff, while you're exploring the individual districts, you can find a lot of cool activities, which will include things like little mini games or activities for you to participate in, which can lead to more rewards. In addition to this, after you clear a district, you can access special, like super hard boss fight type stuff that will give you even more of a challenge and more to explore. And all of that together with the passing of days, I think makes a pretty satisfying game loop. And moreover, a game that I think is definitely worth taking a look at. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless, of all of that, thank you again for watching. As a reminder, this game is out now. You can check it out on Steam, Epic, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, PS5, Switch. The options are open. But let me know what you think about the game down in the comments section below. There will be a link in the description and likely a pinned comment where you can check out the game. All of that said, thank you guys again. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.